Ah, so cute.
We made it. Okay, let me make sure.
All right, let's get started. So this is the opening of StarQuest, Maya's first solo show on FeralFile. Super excited to be here, and she's going to do a walkthrough of the art. We also have Nora. Nora was the curator for this show. It's been just an absolute joy, real privilege to work with both of them over the past, what has it been now, 7 or 8 months? It's been quite some time. Maya, can you kind of kick us off and tell us a little bit about this work? And then Nora, please jump in if you have any insights as curator, anything you could do to help kind of frame. So it's so what's wonderful about this art comes through.
Yes, perfect. Hi. I'm so excited that StarQuest is now open on FeralFile. It's been a real journey and joy to work with both FeralFile on this exhibition and Nora on the framing and curation of the show. It's crazy looking at feralfile.com right now. If you go, the first thing you see is this live stream of the work, which this is actually generative software running, but we're going to get into all of that. So StarQuest is an exhibition that is very much a new direction and very personal for me. The piece itself focuses on the culture of American competition dance. And I grew up as a competition dancer. I'm from central Pennsylvania, and I spent basically my entire childhood immersed in the culture of competition dance. And so it's very personal to me in that way. But also, StarQuest is heavily based on the reality television show Dance Moms, which first premiered on Lifetime in 2011. And I also used to watch that when I was younger. And while making this piece, I've really gone back and rewatched a lot more of the show. And ultimately, all of these pieces have kind of merged and come through in the way that the work has manifested. So the piece is an AI video-based work that features, let's go into the exhibition. Explore. So Nora has written some incredibly useful text that frames the show. But I'm just going to talk through some of the pieces here. So StarQuest is a series of AI video works. Each scene that exists in StarQuest, there's 111 scenes, is 8 seconds, features the AI-generated video and an AI-generated soundtrack as well. And together, these 111 scenes make up a data set that essentially works as the core backing of StarQuest. And so all of these scenes, if you scroll down on the show, exist here. And scenes are able to be sequenced by this piece of custom software that I've written, which is running live here. You can see an example. But basically, scenes are sequenced to create a generative episode. And it's generative because the scenes are sequenced in a random order every time. So there's no set duration to each episode. There's no exact beginning or end. It's infinitely shuffling different scenes in the work. Yeah, and I have a lot to say about the process of making it. But Nora, do you want to say anything at this point before I get into it?
Well, I still have to admit that I still have not seen Dance Moms. I've only seen the clips. So that is maybe my first thing, but I think that like in general, I always kind of found kind of a connection to it because I'd done like some more research or like some curation on kind of like the influence and the impact on kind of like social media content. So I think that was the first entry point to like how we actually kind of like began to discuss this work was the ways in which we like reality TV is such a huge part of like everyday like online life and how this is kind of has become a kind of thing, especially in the last kind of in the last like rise of like I don't know, in the last like 5 years, I would say 5 to 8 years, because of the rise of influencer culture and also kind of like the widespread kind of like dissemination or even I would say acceptance of reality TV as like something to consume and something to watch and something to be discussed in constant discussions with. So I think that is maybe was one of the first point entries, at least for me to talk to you.
Yeah, I think we had some conversations that were really important for the work early on that were about using reality television as a reference for something that is AI generated. Obviously, the conversation around AI in general, and especially now AI video, is very focused on this idea of what looks realistic and what is reality. And I think we both also share an interest not only in the reality television show itself, but then also kind of like the fandom and like the world that happens around a show. And yeah, that's something that I was really wanting to emphasize with this work too. And something that I got really into when I was starting to make the piece, I was completely immersed on dance mom TikToks and like Reddit subreddits about dance moms and everything, and just seeing the way that people reacted to the show in online spaces that were not, where the show was streaming exactly. But maybe I'll talk through a little bit about the process of making each of the videos. So I knew at the beginning of this piece that I wanted to make a work that was focused on competition dance culture and that used generative AI, a generative AI video model in some way. And it took me a really long time to really land on the exact framework for making the piece. What I really liked was this kind of parallel between this idea of training as a dancer and you're like really working so hard to achieve this ideal of perfection, and based on what you've seen, because you kind of train yourself through being in the studio but also through looking at other dancers, and trying to model yourself after them. That to me was a really nice analogy for the way that artificial intelligence models are trained, especially thinking about this new wave of latent diffusion models and how they look at a data set and then reduce images to messes of pixels that are then reverse engineered into an eventual image that they are producing themselves based on a prompt. And so to start making the piece, I'm going to just walk through some of the process I had here. Okay, this is the behind the scenes. But to start making the work, I initially rewatched Dance Moms and took many screenshots per episode. This is my Arena channel of Dance Moms screenshots. It's public, so if anyone wants to go see it on Arena, you are welcome to. But you can kind of see here, this is just one dance scene. I have like 15 screenshots from it. I was really trying to understand the visual language that was present in the show, be able to break that down. And then I was also really interested in capturing some of these moments of dialogue from them. So watching it with captions on, I was able to document, exact phrasing from both the lyrics that were in the songs and then also the moments of dialogue, which ended up being really important for the way that I was kind of scripting StarQuest. So once I had all of these screenshots, I then would make selects from this, to be kind of my visual reference point. And then I would go into my StarQuest shot list spreadsheet that I made, where I first laid out all of the select screenshots and then the corresponding caption of what the kind of script would be for that scene. And then I used this as a visual reference. It's funny looking at this. It's I think there's a very clear relationship between some of the screenshots and some of the scenes that are in the final work. But I would use this as a visual reference and then write a fully written prompt based on the screenshot that I had taken. But eventually the spreadsheet was not robust enough. So I worked with the technologist Tina Tarigian, and we co-created this StarQuest shot list web application to manage all of the different shots that I had. And once I eventually had a prompt written for every shot that was in the work, I would bring that into the software I was using for the AI video model and generate the video. But it took many different iterations per video. I probably was generating about 10 to 125 shots per every single video that you see in this final work. So it was a lot about balancing how to get the shots right. And this, you can see there's a range of kind of the realism of the shots, where some of them appear super glitchy and some of them look much more realistic, I think. Like, for example, this talking head style shot, I think these look the most realistic. And the model is very familiar with and quite good at performing like very pedestrian scenes, like, okay, like a talking head shot. I'm sure it's seen a lot of that. But dance, it still has so much trouble understanding the physics of the body. And so that's where a lot of the kind of classic AI glitches, I think, really come through. One of the most obvious glitches, I'll play in this one, for example, and I think it's important to say, for all of none of the glitches that happen in the work were prompted. So I'm never asking for it to do anything quote unquote wrong. But all of the glitches that happened were kind of selections that were made after working on the piece. But this one's classic to me.
It's crashing down on your echoing heart. It's crashing down.
Yeah, I think this is one of the glitchiest moments in the whole work, where you see her like a third leg grow out of the dancer while she's doing this leap. And I debated a lot at the beginning about what to keep in and what not to keep in, but I think that the moments in the dance scenes that are really glitchy do serve the way that when you're watching the work, it kind of pulls you out of the work because you immediately recognize that it's AI. This is another.
Yeah. I remember when we had that conversation actually at the beginning, when you were like having like thoughts about like, oh, where to kind of put it in terms of like, oh, is it like better to leave them in or leave them out? And I remember kind of like thinking about kind of that in lots of ways. It's interesting to kind of see kind of like how the image kind of like doesn't always work perfectly, which I thought was kind of nice to kind of see, especially in the context of AI, as it's sometimes always presented as something that is like always going to give you the correct answer. Also in terms of kind of how people use it, people often think, you know, oh, I believe it because it's AI in some ways. So I actually thought that that was like one of the, I mean, that's one of my favorite scenes also as well. I also like when I'm always like sometimes I catch myself like singing the music as well.
Yeah, no, I the music also would always get stuck in my head. And I think that's something that it was so helpful. Nora and I had a lot of long Zoom calls early on when there were all these very open-ended questions about, you know, how much to index on the glitchiness. And you know, I think the piece for me, it's a really dark work that's really about what it means to have access to this type of technology, and for this, you know, to live in a world and visual culture where we are able to produce videos in this way. And a lot of Nora's previous writing really helped me be able to think about that in a very specific way for this piece. And I think also, yeah, like talking about it early on, the glitches did bring out that kind of the darkness that is there in the work for me, because it, you know, this is a work that it's making something so close to something that already exists. But I think the glitches are what kind of like pulls it away from
Yeah.
complete recreation.
Exactly. Because I mean, like most of the images that we consume online are always about kind of perfection. And the idea of like AI replicating something that is also like, intended to be like perfection. So actually, I really enjoyed like those kind of like moments of like slippage or moments where like the algorithm just kind of like doesn't like labor properly. So that's why I really enjoy that third leg.
Yeah, me too.
That
Maya, what do
goddamn
you
third
feel
leg.
when you watch one of these dancers that you made in this world, when they complete a move or they fall apart? What's
Yeah,
your
I
emotional
mean,
reaction to that?
I'll just let the stream play here. It was a really difficult um it was a really difficult work to make for me. I think the first scenes that I made were the dance scenes, and so that has this kind of and those were the first scenes I knew that I wanted to make for the piece, and only after I started making those did I realize I wanted to kind of build out the world of StarQuest to include the, interviews and the behind the scenes moments and being backstage and making the backstage moments and then seeing them pressed up against the on stage moments was very emotional for me. I mean, a lot of my work previous to this over the past couple of years is about performance online, and it's something I've always been fascinated by and haunted by. And making this, coming back to dance for the first time, which was such competition dance, which was such a major part of my childhood, it helped me realize a lot about why I'm so interested in performance in a way that I'm not sure I was fully able to confront before. And this is something that I talk about. Feral File and Triple Canopy hosted an installation of the work and performance lecture in New York City at Gibney, a dance studio downtown, on Tuesday. Nora and Sean were both there, which was amazing. But this is something I talk about in the performance lecture also, is that my role in this work, I think, really shifted throughout the process of making the piece, because I started making the work. I really felt like, I saw myself as one of the dancers. That was my experience. But the longer that I spent with this piece, I realized that I'd taken on a new role and that I felt like I was the coach in the work. And I was like pushing these non-existent, to quote Nora's text, the AI default girls, pushing these AI default girls to perform in a really specific way and adhere to my expectations. And it made me feel powerful in a way that was very uncomfortable. And also just, work through a lot of the emotions I honestly still maintain from this world, which, is about going on stage for competition dance. But it's been very trippy making this work and then presenting this work, releasing a work. I think so, being an artist, kind of making an exhibition, making work and releasing it, it feels very similar to the feeling of going on stage. Like leading up to the show, I was very nervous, and like, you're showcasing yourself in a very vulnerable and raw way, and kind of making these scenes of the characters being quite nervous and like kind of psychologically struggling with what it meant to perform in this specific way. I still feel so many parallels about, for me, art now that I used to feel about dance, and that I feel like I was recreating through the scenes. So it was,
Like, was there a specific moment, maybe even like much before we even started thinking about doing this, but was there a specific moment that you thought like dance, this has to become an AI reality show?
it's a good question. I don't know how I initially even. Oh, okay. This is what happened. My friend has a zine called Not Here to Make Friends, where she commissions essays about reality television shows. And I had felt a pull before I'd concepted this work entirely. I'd felt a pull to write about dance moms. And I think, Sean, I think you have, my first work on Feral File behind you, which is a software-based work called Can I Go Where You Go? It was released in 2021 in the group exhibition curated by Casey Reese on Feral File. And that was kind of the last work that focused pretty explicitly on dance for me. and then I took a long break from it. But anyway, when I was writing this essay for my friend Zine about dance moms, I think for the first time in, at least like 4 years, I felt ready to reintroduce dance into my arts practice in a way that I felt I had enough distance from being in this world to write about it and think through it kind of with dance moms as a lens. So I started writing that, and then really around the same time, these new video models were just starting to come out that were so they were so much drastically better than things I had seen previously. And this is the first larger AI based work that I've made on my own. I've collaborated on multiple projects with the artist Anne Hirsch, Ugly Bitches and Little Darlings, and we used a GAN, and we used a fine-tuned stable diffusion model for one of each for both of those. But I think in my work, usually what I'm interested in is taking something that exists and then remaking it through software in some way or through a generative process, but then twisting it so something's a little bit off. And previously, I felt like AI video and a lot of like AI aesthetics looked too different from the quote unquote real thing for me to be interested in it. Once the video models were coming out in conjunction with me writing this essay, I just realized for me, like everything conceptually really locked in for me in a way that felt right to start engaging for the first time more seriously with AI video models. So, but yeah, I remember Sean, so long ago showing you really early tests that I had done of the project, and the project really evolved, and I had to get really comfortable with writing these text prompts that were pretty elaborate, and also know how to world build. Like if you look at the scenes here, I wanted them all to feel like they were in the same visual universe. And it's something that, I think when you're making a generative work and you have an algorithm that's outputting X outputs, you want all the outputs to be different, but kind of feel like they're in the same world often. That was something I was always so focused on. I know a lot of generative artists are. And with this, it was a really different process because none of these clips know about each other, or they're just generated by the same default model. But it was kind of like this exercise in trying to really shape the world so it felt cohesive and reuse parts of the prompt. So it's okay, you can rely that if you say this, the model's going to kind of, these backgrounds and things will kind of output things in a similar way. So yeah. But, maybe I'll go into some of the specific scenes here a little bit. Okay, let's watch this one. This one I think is interesting. I'm gonna try to broken glass on the floor. Okay, so there's a lot of details in these scenes that I think are very hard to pick up on when you just watch them once. But for example, something I really love in this one specifically is this lift that's happening on the side here. You can see it's two girls, but there's one girl's arms are wrapped here, and there's another pair of hands that are lifting her at the top here. These are things that happen. They happen so quickly. It's really hard to catch, but it's so moments like that are so fascinating to me, and they're like the AI glitches and the tells of what's happening. But if I play it, and this will loop because it's a scene. And I'm making to be free from these. And then you can see how there's a lot of dance scenes where kind of one girl will become two, or two girls will become one. It has a lot of difficulty with the kind of temporal consistency of the characters. On the floor, and I'm making to be free from these riddles. It's kind of hard to catch. And I mean, some of them are based on, this one is based on a very, to me, very classic and iconic episode of Dance Moms. The song and the baby. So all of the music that's in StarQuest it's an AI generated song, but these were generated with different models. So there's a video model that generates the video, and it does output sound, which I use for the dialogue when they're speaking. But the music that it generates, it's often just like sounds like electronic pop, and it all sounds totally the same. So I wanted the music to be a lot expanded, a lot more. And so I used a different model for the music. And the way that I prompted all of the music was by typing in exact lyrics that were in the Dance Moms routine performances that I captured through the screenshots. So this lyric, "The Feeling So Electric," is a lyric from the song, but the music is completely different because I just put in the lyric and then you put in the energy of the song, and then you get output a completely different song, but they kind of share that parallel. But then it was also challenging to figure out, because they're not dancing to this music, and normally when you choreograph a dance, a dancer is dancing to music, and so the movement really emphasizes the song. Lining up the clips with the music, I had to really try to emphasize like certain moves that they do with certain beats in the song. That was not always so straightforward. But
Feeling so electric.
And sometimes they look almost. Sometimes the most uncanny part of the dance clips, I think, is that they're almost like too in sync. They feel like copy pasted in some way. Yeah. And then, okay, here's another really interesting glitch. So there's some dialogue glitches that I kept in. If you watch this, when I press play, the two girls on the left, watch them speak.
She's gonna be yelling at me the most.
So you can see they kind of both are talking in this way where that was an issue I had a lot of times with dialogue, is that it usually gets the dialogue exactly right. But even if I'm like, this girl, this character on the left says this, and then another character says this, something like this will happen where it's just a bit strange.
We all missed something. It's not just you. She's gonna be yelling at me the most. We all missed something. It's not just you.
But yeah, these moments with them backstage and them talking to each other are very they added a lot of the emotional weight of the piece for me, because you have like the coach figure who talks to the dancers, who's very harsh in the work, and you have the dancers on stage, but them talking to each other, you can just see that they've kind of internalized this like level of like discipline and intensity that they then kind of like put on each other as well, which is very strange. But in the way that I've designed a lot of the coach scenes, it's such that you intentionally, the show Dance Moms focuses a lot on the adults, obviously, because it's called Dance Moms. And then Abby Lee Miller's like the really famous coach. But with this piece, I really wanted it to focus instead on the world of the dancers. And so the coach usually appears kind of modeled in my likeness a bit, but usually appears like back to the camera. You can't quite see her face.
Stomach, your stomach up, arabesque. Straighten that knee. Come on. Stomach, your stomach up.
Yeah, and so this is one of the select scenes that happen at Shimmer Dance Studio, which is the fake dance studio that I've made up that all of the girls are training at, which shows up in multiple shots. Let me find another one that's like, you can see. Yeah, so you can see like even in this thumbnail, the jackets say Shimmer, and often the characters, when referencing the dance studio that they go to, will say Shimmer Dance Studio. Yeah, like here.
Here is your highest scoring elite junior small group. Can you girls tell me what dance company you're with?
Shimmer Dance Studio!
Here is your highest.
Yeah, so you can see them there. Let me refresh. See. But yeah.
Should we talk about the idea of like the data set?
Yes, and I want to show the episodes, but
Oh yeah. Because I was like, okay, we should go data set and episodes.
I know I want to show the episodes, but let me see.
Like that last scene, by the way, always like slightly disturbs me on a level I can't like it doesn't, I can't even explain why it disturbs me, but it
The
really
the
does.
awards
Yeah,
scene.
the awards thing, because they're all like jumping in unison.
I
And
know.
even though I know it's AI, there's still like something kind of like so like uncannily replicated through kind of like, staging that scene in itself. So I know it's AI, but like it does like such a like precise job in trying to like, even though it doesn't like always get like the dancer or the dancing correct, but it does kind of get like that eerie kind of like competition staged reality like mood feeling like spot on like
I know.
in so many of these scenes. And this is what kind of like makes me like the most kind of like, oh my God, I cannot deal. So
I
like I enjoy like the glitches because I like, it's kind of like a reminder to kind of pull yourself out of the world. But like the eerie, unsettling mood of like those dancers and their commitment to the bit is like that could easily be on Dance Moms. It has this kind of like in like, it could easily be one or the other.
Yeah, I know. It does kind of capture, because there's something so like I'm asking for something so stereotypical in a way. I
Yeah.
feel like it's very pop, it's very like, and a lot of what the model returns is kind of like the most like totally the epitome of the energy of what it thinks like that moment would be, which I think does, especially the awards ceremony moments, I feel like they are so uncanny because it's kind of the most, in some ways, like the most challenging part of this whole competition dance world is like you're not only doing the performance, but then like there's this like ranking ceremony that
Hmm.
happens at the end, and seeing it mimic that with this kind of like poptimism energy is, yeah, very, very strange.
Dark.
But I'll talk
But I
about.
think though,
Oh yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
no, I was gonna say like one thing. I think that's kind of like one of the things that like for me is like so great about the work is kind of like in lots of ways it's kind of talking or it's kind of speaking to kind of like the ways in which, you know, kind of algorithmic culture is kind of like shaping how we present ourselves online and how kind of like repeatability or patterns of like gestures have become kind of core to like being seen. And I think that like that's the way that like that the work kind of connects to me on like the everyday.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
So yeah. Anyway, let's talk about the data set.
Okay, let's talk about the data set. So we will get the episodes showing up, and they were showing up on the preview, but I'm not sure why they're not showing up here yet, but they will be showing up. So basically what happens when you collect, when you have this, we have this data set of scenes, that's 111 scenes. And we've been talking about it as a data set because it's essentially material to create what then is in the StarQuest universe is called a generative episode. And so basically, I'll play one here. The way that it works is that the okay, so scene 1, scene 2, scene 3. This is a 3-scene episode.
I just had another dream. Standing with the wind in my face, I lost myself. It's crashing down. I'm your echoing heart. It's crashing.
Okay, so you can see in that moment, it just started to re-loop. So essentially the software that I wrote, it shuffles, which is what's also running here. It shuffles together different scenes to create a generative episode based on the scenes that are held by one specific on-train address. And so what happens then is StarQuest starts to act like it's essentially like a decentralized generative film where there are different scenes who are collected by different people. And then ultimately, the curation that happens if you collect these 3 scenes, they become this generative episode where they kind of infinitely play in the browser on loop. And you've formed this sequence that allows, creates a specific perspective using a slice of the data set. And this format really unlocks something for me, I think, because so much of my practice is about making generative browser-based work. And even though StarQuest employs AI video as a medium, still the ultimate medium line of StarQuest is like a generative software-based work, because it's sequencing it's using the scenes as a data set, like we've been talking about, and sequencing them through this software. And so what happens is it starts to become, it's a non-linear narrative. This isn't a reality show that you can sit down and stream from start to finish. And also, in contrast to, a video work, there's no beginning or end, there's no duration, there's an infinite duration to the piece. But it becomes kind of like you're seeing snippets of the show, which for me was very relevant to the way that I was immersed in the world of Dance Moms over the past year, and the way that I've consumed shows, that I've been watching for years, where you maybe have seen the show, maybe not, but then you're getting all of this content through a streaming platform or through a social media platform like TikTok or Instagram, and you're seeing like reels and pieces of the show that's like cut up and remixed. And so the way that I've been talking about StarQuest with this kind of scene data set of scenes and episode format is like, it's kind of a work that's wrapping itself around the idea of a show. Because you see all of these scenes together and it looks like you can tell that there's a world that all of these characters live in, but there is no, unlike there is with Dance Moms, there's no true show version of StarQuest. The only way that StarQuest exists is through this like video collage of snippets. And I was really excited to be able to give agency to the people who were engaging with the work to be able to collect and curate their own slice of the data set to make these generative episodes. Which should be fixed soon.
Yes.
Trying
to fix it right now.
Okay, cool. But yeah, but I think that part of it also was the most interesting to think about communicating. And I think through the text that we landed on that you wrote, Nora, I think it really comes through, and I think is kind of it's also interesting to me. It's kind of like a way that a work could operate like this work could only operate online through like an exhibition presentation on something like Feral File, because it kind of has this interactive element in terms of like who's curating which scenes that go together. And there are these kind of there's these kind of like I guess kind of Easter eggs in the piece that some of the audio seamlessly carries from one piece to the next. And so even though there are two separate scenes, if you were to have both of them in a generative episode, at times there would be kind of like what it seems like the audio is just playing all the way through one scene. And there are also some moments that, there's no character consistency in this piece, but there's also some moments where you do see, I think it's like our human nature for us to want to like impose seeing two characters in similar costumes, or, we want to kind of impose this idea of consistency throughout the narrative arc. And so there are scenes that I think pair together really nicely. And I think there's moments that become even more powerful when you see two specific scenes juxtaposed. When you see a character dancing on stage and then that cuts, to a backstage moment, or a moment in the studio, or a moment with the coach. So yeah, I think that element is really important. And I'm really excited to see what ends up becoming kind of the like season of StarQuest, which will consist of all of these different episodes, but that were curated by different people who have kind of all different perspectives on the data set. Already talking to some people are more interested in the dance clips and want an episode that's like purely dance clips. And, I think other people are more interested in kind of seeing like the world building happen in StarQuest, where you see the behind the scenes moments and the on-stage moments too.
That's amazing. I mean, should we wrap it up here? I think that's such a good
yeah.
overview. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm very excited that the show's open. So yeah.
Yeah. It's been
Yeah, I
fun.
would really encourage everyone to just spend time watching these episodes. It's I've watched them many, many times, and of course they should be obvious, but they're different every time, and they're so different. Like it's so incredibly different based on the sequencing of things. And this is it's purely decentralized. It runs really fast on Feral File because we're doing some things with streaming, but these are purely decentralized tokens that will rebuild themselves over time based on addresses that are on chain. So this art is literally going to evolve with the blockchain over time. If you have an episode and you want to add more clips or remove clips, you transfer tokens, and Maya's player will resequence things in this really neat kind of random way. I just think this is a fascinating work, and I think especially all of these like she has so many layers of AI that's happening here, from these like exquisitely crafted prompts using LLMs to figure out how to make the video, and then all these different videos, and then of course the music. So Maya, I really feel like you've just explored the edges of what is possible right now with AI in such an incredibly, I don't know, it's like it's such a dark like such a dark way that you've explored this stuff, and it feels like a mirror on where we are right now, um, online. I mean, sorry, not even online. It's like the online world is intersecting with reality in a way that's just, it's deeply unsettling. And I think these episodes capture all of that for me. It's just fantastic.
Thank you, Sean. No, I really
Yeah.
appreciate that, and I feel really happy with the way that the piece has shaped up. Oh, and
Oh, they're working. All right.
episodes are working. Yeah, so we can see them now, which is great. So
Yep. Maya, one
when
last
you,
thing. So the
yeah,
episodes, like you'll see the name of the collector of the episode. So you're sort of like, that's the producer, I guess producing it. I don't know what language do you use for that?
yeah. So this is,
What
I
is the
would say,
person
like
that collects this stuff?
it's like the curator of the episode, I guess,
Cool.
or like the
Cool.
person who's designing it. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think it's really fun to be able to see, you know, what this one is by Pixel Pete, which someone has chosen to curate together.
Good job.
But I'll let everyone watch on their own time.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. See you online.
Bye.
Bye.